Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics Football. It's Fran here, and I'm gonna actually introduce like a very interesting concept due to what could be one of the biggest impending transfers of what is already a great transfer window. And this could be, Cristiano Ronaldo to Manchester United, especially after the Man City kind of rumors had broken down. And what's interesting about this is I think Ronaldo going to United does change the dynamics of FPL. Not only does he, I think, affect Manchester United assets and probably our conception of some assets such as Bruno, but also he will probably affect our conception of assets such as Greenwood as well, and what kind of position that he might play within the team, and that will kind of fundamentally change a lot of our teams. On top of that, I think the general overarching mindset for a lot of players is that they wanted to kind of game week 7 wild card, right? To kind of get into the Chelsea fixtures and hit them in stride. What I'm trying to introduce as a concept today is a game week 3 wild card, especially for those who might have felt that they have created slightly weaker teams in game weeks 1 to 2, which is usually what happens, especially with some of the more, I would say, inexperienced players. But at the same time, I'm also thinking about the potential of a wild card heading into, let's say, game week 4, especially after this week. But for the players who are interested in a wild card right now, I think there's definitely a strong potential to wild card now, especially to go into Cristiano Ronaldo, who will probably be listed, in my opinion, as a striker in FPL. The team will actually be set out as follows, and as you can see, I clearly have no United players. I think, a lot of people will be thinking about the lack of Shaw, and I think, as you can see with the money remaining, you can clearly go into someone like Shaw, and I don't think that's an issue, right? The same thing goes with, let's say, a lack of Bruno. I think he would be directly replaced by, someone who would be holding the position that Kane has in this team right now. Kane is someone who actually, in my opinion, has the best transition into Lukaku, because with the exception to the kind of clash with Chelsea in game week 5, Kane has fantastic fixtures that run all the way to game week 7, which means that is the perfect time to transition into a Lukaku, who would also save you money and probably give you the opportunity to kind of once again upgrade your midfield and other core pieces in your team. The reason why I've suggested a 3-4-3 structure as well is because a 3-4-3, I think, is probably the strongest side to actually hit game week 7 with. In my opinion, most of the talismans for teams are going to be strikers heading into game week 7. Especially now that Ronaldo arrives at United, we kind of maybe lose the talismanic effect of Bruno potentially. On top of that, I think you look at some of the other teams that you can transition into in terms of the strikers. We're talking about players like Bamford. We're talking about Jimenez as well from Wolves. And I think that is super interesting because this team will have the flexibility to easily move into those players if we're not feeling so high on Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Antonio. With Kane, I think we know he is pretty much the sure thing, bar an injury, really. And it's so easy to probably drop down into price into a Lukaku. But of course, the whole point of this video is about having a role to Ronaldo. If you don't actually want to play with Kane, then the simple idea would just be to go into Ronaldo instead, who I imagine will be probably priced at around 12. Even if he is priced at 12.5 million, you can see that there is money left remaining within this side to actually go into a Ronaldo team and have a Ronaldo team around this kind of structure. And what I like about this is you still kind of retain a very strong defense. Diaz, we know, is a set and forget player for City who gets us so much value from that kind of position. Alexander-Arnold is exactly the same thing. Obviously, yes, we do have a rather tough fixture in terms of the kind of game matchup with Chelsea for Liverpool, but we know Trent and Salah are effectively pieces that we can look at for the remainder of the season, maybe until even game week 15, right, where we're talking about how an asset like Fernandes could be interesting, and Manchester United double premium could be interesting just because the games are so nice. But that, of course, is so far into the future. We're talking about really having a team right now that can effectuate the medium term. And Reguilon as well is someone who clearly was priced down from a template piece like Shaw. Shaw is someone who at 5.5 I think has, in some circumstances, has unimpressed some people. But I think you can clearly still go with Shaw within the structure. I just suggested Reguilon as an interesting option to kind of open up discussion in terms of the two pieces that I think are most flexible here in the structure. And the other one would be Harrison as well, right? With Harrison, you have a player who can flexibly move into someone like Traore. Traore has fantastic fixtures, right, as well, as we know, post game week 3. So you can easily move from, let's say, Harrison to Traore and maybe keep Kane for one more week and continue to play within the structure for a while. You can then also move out of Reguilon as well eventually, or if you don't want to play with Reguilon, you can start without Reguilon. So for me, there's definitely capacity to go into someone like Traore or Sarr if you are kind of towards the inclination. Cody is someone who, at the bench, will be able to fill in where we think we have a tough game week. So for example, when Reguilon has a tough match versus Chelsea, we kind of have Cody to come in playing versus Brentford at home, which I think is a fantastic fixture for Wolves. So for me, this is the team that can actually all go to game week 7, where you can start to attack Chelsea assets. You can see there's money in the bank to even start the team with Reece James as an example, if that's like a Chelsea asset you wanted. And you can also clearly go into Lukaku. And the money that you get from going into Lukaku can be spread back into the midfield to upgrade someone like Rafinha, Benrahma, or Harrison. On top of that, you have the ability as well to go into Ronaldo, as I mentioned. If it seems like Ronaldo is, the real deal as an FPL asset. We know Ronaldo and of course the legacy of himself as a player, and he is a fantastic player. I think last season, in terms of a domestic season, was a bit of a drop, but I can still see Ronaldo being clearly fit enough to play consistent minutes within FPL and within the Premier League rather. And that means that you're basically looking at an option that can consistently produce each week and probably be one of the most interesting FPL assets that we've seen for a long time. And I think what's beautiful about this season as well is we finally have so much flexibility in terms of the premiums, especially due to Kane staying in Spurs. I think even when you look at this team, there's not necessarily a need to even move away from Kane, right? So that's what makes this wild card so strong, in my opinion. I think Kane has lovely fixtures, and we can just double check them, to be honest. It's just the Chelsea game that is a tough one. But every kind of premium player has one tough fixture, in my opinion, with maybe exception to United, who have, I would say, tougher average fixtures, but not so nice kind of games. Where, for example, if you look at someone like Salah, he clearly has a tough Chelsea game, a tough Man City game, game week 7. For Kane, it's just about that Chelsea game. For Lukaku, we're talking about very, very tough games, right? Very, very tough games all the way until game week 7, where there's a smooth run for Chelsea. And I mean, if I were trying to play, and accumulate as much points as possible, I would still avoid Lukaku for now. And I feel Kane is that kind of option that if you want a wild card early, will give you your team the template structure in a 3-4-3 or at least a 3-5-2 if you don't really prefer it, to go into someone like Lukaku so effectively and so easily. So that is going to be the video for today, guys. It's a wild card suggestion, to be honest. I'm not personally going for a wild card this week. I might really look towards creating a wild card this week, and I'll probably update this type of video and the scheme going forwards. But I think the template and the core of this team is there. You have Livramento as well, who is a bench enabler and someone who can probably grow over time as an asset. And Harrison and Reguilon are flexibly moved into kind of interesting assets from 5.6 as a defender to, even 4.5 if you really want to play it cheap that way. And you can also move Harrison into what people consider to be interesting options this year, with Traore playing left striker and also Ismaila Sarr being an option at Watford. But anyways, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope the Ronaldo to United news does happen. I think it would change the dynamics of FPL a lot, and it would make the season completely open. And that's all we can wish for as an FPL manager, right? All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.